Would it be possible to make a Jurassic Park in real life? How much would it cost to make a Jurassic Park in real life? We want to build a park full of dinosaurs, series of creatures that have been extinct for millions of years. There were a company or a private initiative with sufficient startup capital to undertake such an undertaking. It would first have to take into account a number of impediments and drawbacks from an ethical and scientific point of view. Reviving an extinct being may look good from a conservationist and ecologist point, especially because we could guarantee the existence on Earth of an animal that has disappeared. The interest that something like this would generate would be unquestioned. Imagine for a moment that the dodo is revived or that some species of mammal is saved from annihilation, with all its benefits and negative impacts in terms of ecosystems or various natural balance. But would that have any economic application that would recover such an investment? To be honest, no. Reviving a dinosaur from the Cretaceous period for recreational purposes, yes. Even if you were a scientist for altruistic purposes, you have to pay bills. And bringing back an extinct creature is neither easy nor cheap. Assuming we have the source material, to this huge amount of money in digging and mining must be added the expense of DNA. In the 1990s, when work began on the Human Genome Project, it took almost a decade to sequence all of man's DNA in its entirety, with the total cost of the research estimated at some $7 billion. With the advance of technology, sequencers have decreased in cost and size, increasing their efficiency and speed. It is not an easy or entirely accurate operation, and sometimes the so-called ultra-long reads have error process when finding points. In any case, what cost thousands of dollars and required large rooms just a few decades ago, today has the same monetary value and takes up the same amount of space as a high-end smart. Well, we already have extracted dinosaur genetic material, and it is perfect. With the instructions for life in our hands, we must start looking for ways to shape it and bring it to reality. And once again, despite the advances, it's not cheap. Today, there are companies that allow you to clone a pet or companion animal for amounts ranging from $20,000 to $50,000. It's a complicated technique, of course, but we're talking about recreating our beloved Toby with an instruction manual and a YouTube tutorial for extra support in case of doubt. Getting a diplodocus to walk and breathe is another matter. According to several studies, and focusing on the reintroduction of an extinct bird, which has a lot in common with dinosaurs, we would be talking about an average cost of between $300,000 and $500,000 per animal and to which we would have to add additional costs in just without taking into account the incubation temperatures of these eggs. Sometimes the animals perished or died a few days, hours, or minutes after hatch. Or in some cases, they were even Once you have an acceptable version or biological product, a dinosaur that looks and behaves as we expect a dinosaur to behave, you gain time and money, and your instructions become the model to follow for future batches and waves of production, a prototype to work on. Manufacturing dinosaurs on a large scale. We have our dinosaur, now what? Looking for the perfect biological reserve. We have small archipelagos for sale and rent in the Bahamas, with considerable land areas that even have an airstrip for $46 million. We also have in Indonesia, with more than 1,400 hectares. When choosing a land on which to build our Jurassic Park and its more than possible nearby dinosaur factory, we have to take into account more than just the size or the extension of the land. A hypothetical Jurassic Park would have to have plenty of space for animals, good communication, and a unique location. Is a climate like the Mediterranean better? Is it better to locate our Jurassic Park? Well, considering that we are going to breed extinct animals that thrived in a different climate and atmosphere than ours, there is no exact. A tropical environment might be more suitable, but we always have to take into account external elements, such as storms and other weather phenomena, which can serve as either pluses or minuses for the location of the island we want to exploit commercially. There is also another question. Should it be an island? Not necessarily, but it is the most advised. Trying to locate a Jurassic Park with potentially dangerous animals in any country in the world is not a good idea at first, and a good number of legislations or legal problems would have to. It is very likely that some countries would even want to admit this enterprise as an attraction and differentiating element for international. The location of our biological reserve is vital, and it must be well connected to the main airports or ports of the world. We are not only talking in terms of past staff or visitors in order to monetize the site. We have to take into account that a large number of materials, food and items will have to be transported from the mainland to the island. Facilities and construct. A theme park or amusement park is expensive, and the huge amounts of money put into it are not always recovered until after a few years. The example of the initial Disneyland Paris debacle is telling. Of course, Tickets to our hypothetical Jurassic Park would not cost $15 or $50. They should cost, for example, a weekend pass per person between $800 and $1,000. Plus then all the profit that can be made inside, such as selling food and drinks, merchandising such as t-shirts, stuffed animals, keychains, photographs, VIP pass, hotels, etc. Food and drink could be banned from the outside, as many amusement parks do nowadays, to encourage the consumption of our food and drink in our park at an astronomical price. Building a luxury resort with genetically engineered animals is much more complex than putting a person dressed as Batman to take pictures with him or Mickey Mouse to inflate balloons in every corner. However, we can take into account the work of Disney as a corporation when building one of its most expensive theme parks, the one in Shanghai in China. Work on Disneyland Shanghai, according to the company's CEO, began in 2011 and has taken more than 5 years. The costs amount to some $5 billion, the company's largest investment outside the United States, and that without taking into account that the attractions cannot eat potential customers. The good thing is that we would hardly have any advertising costs, since being something new and unique, we would have free advertising on us, YouTubers, radio, newspapers, everyone would talk about us. In this Jurassic Park, we should build a series of hotels and lodgings for a specific number of visitors, which would vary according to the size of the island. Offer a range of restaurants and a series of secondary activities of all kinds, from recreational tennis courts, swimming pools, discos, shops to educational, with museums and visitor centers where tourists learn all about the prehistoric animals that once inhabited the Earth and the laborious process of creating extinct animals. Sponsors, museums, scientific societies, and franchises could make the investment more bearable and give a plus of renown to our park, such as Burger King, McDonald's, Starbucks, Zara, Adidas, Gucci, which are an option to be considered for the financial viability of the park. But stores and rooms are not everything. We also have to house a large number of dinosaurs and ensure their safety and that of the visitors and tourists who come to see them. We have to have areas for the more docile dinosaurs and larger places or more confined. A living sauropod such as Apatosaurus or Brachiosaurus would require large open spaces for movement and acclimatization. And logically, a carnivorous theropod such as Tyrannosauri or Allosaurus could not be in the same enclosure as a population of herbivores. An intelligent distribution of these animals throughout the park, combining open-air enclosures and high-security enclosures, would be the ideal formula for exhibiting the dinosaurs and guaranteeing them standards of comfort and happiness in their. They may not have rights as such, they are patented animals, but they are alive. Population containment elements should also be considered. Distributing female and male animals or sterilizing them to avoid overpopulation or the birth of The physical security of visitors is another aspect to be addressed. We would have to erect a few kilometers of electric fences or deterrent walls, concrete walls, water-filled moats, and storm and hurricane shelters for our customers in case of emergency. On the other hand, our Jurassic Park would have to have 24-hour surveillance for any unforeseen event, whether with dinosaurs or visitors, and doctors and veterinarians also available 24/7, with a unique and isolated management and control system so that it would not be hacked. We would also have to have cleaning staff, mechanics, waiters, cooks, receptionists, caretakers, maintenance workers, guides, managers, scientists. It is not necessary that all employees of our staff could be hired external companies, for example, for animation. This is quite a lot of salaries at the end of each month, which, if we do the numbers, could lead to an annual expenditure of $10 and $15 million. Care and food. We do not know how a dinosaur, nor what it from the past, from the period when the animal roamed the earth and tried to feed it, but it is trying to get an elephant to eat the leaves of a palm tree or a birch tree. The diet of these animals must have been very complex, and at the moment, it is something that completely escapes us. It would be necessary to be careful and consult with different veterinarians and animal feeding experts to fine-tune the diet of these prehistoric creatures. Once again, we are not talking about a cheap or easy process. According to the annual accounts of some zoos, the care and maintenance amounts to more than €200,000 per month. Taking into account the medical treatment and management derived from the diseases and care of these animals, we should add another €300 million per year. Then there is the big problem of excrement and organic waste. These dinosaurs can produce a large number of feces per day. They ingest a large amount of food. And considering that we already have a problem with the environment because of the methane produced by cows, I do not even want to imagine the amount of gases that these animals would produce. Some use manure, excrement, or other scavenging animals that feed on waste. reducing the number and a sustainable Jurassic Park should guarantee a food supply every few hours for large herbivores such as as well as provide constant intakes for larger, more active carnivores. In addition to food, which could be supplied with automated feeders, there would be a need to contemplate pipelines for the proper flow of drinking water for the animals. In the design of habitats, the creation of artificial lagoons or rivers would be promoted, or we could take advantage of those of the island we had chosen, helping them with an artificial one, always looking for the integration of the dinosaurs in their environment. Maintenance and legal inconvenience. The last major part of the bill. The maintenance of a Jurassic Park of these dimensions, with live animals and a considerable influx of public, taking into account multiple factors derived from the sustenance of biological attractions, surveillance, maintenance of cost of energy, water, and supply. It could be too high. Let's crunch the numbers again based on what it costs Disney to operate and maintain 6 theme parks. According to its financial report for 2017, we are talking about a total of $1.3 billion per year, which divided among 6 parks would give a figure of just over $216 million year over year. This $216 million for our park is perhaps a very low estimate, but it would serve to calculate a basic figure with which to operate in general terms. In the case of opening the doors of a Jurassic Park, there would be groups, environmentalists, companies, politicians, philosophers, scientists, and organizations that would not look favorably on the business we are trying to build. We would have to consider the problems related to complaints, claims and lawsuits for patents, infringements, non-compliance with laws or commercial and exploitation rights. We would have to be careful with the sabotage towards our Jurassic Park and with the possible competitors that could appear in the future. Is it feasible? It seems that opening a Jurassic Park is more expensive than we imagined. We would need an initial base investment of $15 billion to get it up and running with all the guarantees and live animals in their enclosures in the best possible way, as well as having a more or less fixed maintenance cost personnel of about €9. Since this is a speculative exercise, we must clarify that there are highly variable expenses, such as the number of dinosaurs created, their care and feeding, or the size of the island and its buildings and recreational structure. In addition, we do not know exactly how many visitors or tourists could be received in the first few years. But despite all the delays and problems, these would suddenly dissipate with the sight of the first living dinosaur coming out of its shell, and it would generate so much expectation and amazement that people would pay anything to go and see it in person. In short, we could build all this with a little more than the coins we carry with us when we go to buy bread, and I'm starting to save just in case.